Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, whether you are on YouTube or Facebook. My name is Camila Turner. As many of you know, I've been practicing law here in Memphis for a little over 20 years, and each election season, so many people send me messages, text messages, and call me asking who should I vote for, who's running in all of these judicial races and all of these seats, and they are so important because they make decisions that impact our lives. So this year, I said that I would invite some people on so that I could ask them questions, so that I could introduce you to my Facebook friends, to anybody else in the Memphis community who needs to know who's a voter or who's impacted by the decisions that are made by the elected officials. So, my very first guest is Kevin Reed, and Mr. Reed is running for General Sessions Criminal Court
That's
Division
right.
10.
Yes. Yes.
And I'll just start. So, tell us a little bit about your educational background first.
Okay. Before I jump into that, let me say
Huh?
congratulations on doing this. This is the first episode, uh,
Yes, and you
and,
the first guest.
I'm honored to be the first guest.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited about that. So congratulations. Um,
thank you.
Education. Born and raised right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Graduated from East High School. From there, I went to MIT and got an engineering degree. Promptly left MIT and went to Howard. Got my law
So
degree from
I want to
Howard.
stop you right there. Now, how do you go from engineering to law? Because that's not the usual
Well,
trajectory.
well, well. To be frank with you, when you go to MIT, you feel obligated to get that engineering degree because it's a rare opportunity. So I felt obligated to get it, but my heart just wasn't in engineering. And people kept telling me, well, if you go to law school, you'll have a few more years to figure out what you want to do. So I said, okay, that's what I need. I need a little bit more time. And then I fell in love with the law. Uh, Ended up after law school in the
So
public
you went
defender's
to
office.
Howard, like you went to Howard for law school.
Yep, went to
Uh-huh.
went to Howard for law school. Came back to Memphis. Started working in the public defender's office under AC Wharton. Fell in love with criminal defense, and I have been here ever since. And I've loved it. It's been a great experience.
So, what do you do now? What is your job now?
So for the past 13 years, I have been a judicial commissioner. I like to say that the judicial commissioners are the unseen judicial officers in the criminal justice system. We're the ones that are up in the middle of the night setting bonds and reviewing affidavits, sure probable cause exists, reviewing search warrants. We also hear and make decisions on the orders of protections. So there's 10 of us, and our office is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, Christmas time, Thanksgiving. I've been at work on Thanksgiving. I've been at work on Christmas, but there's always a judicial officer on duty, and that's what we do. And we service the whole county. So we handle any issues that might come up in Millington and Bartlett, sometimes Collierville. Our authority stretches all over the county.
And you've been doing that for 13 years, you say?
13 years. Yep,
Yeah.
13 years. And it's honestly it's one of the best jobs I've ever had. We're the first gatekeepers. Just to make sure that all the constitutional protocols are being followed. We're the first ones to make sure that that's happening. Of course, on down the line, wonderful lawyers like yourself jump in there and fight for those constitutional protections as well. But we see it first and try to make sure everything's being followed.
So one of the things that you mentioned that you do as a judicial commissioner is you all set bonds. So
Right.
you all are usually the first ones that see a case when it comes from the police or whoever made the arrest.
Yes.
And just so that people know, what are some of the things that you consider when you decide the amount of a bond to set?
Well, I've been doing this for 13 years, and bonds is always a controversial topic, and it's the type of thing that the the principles of it, what the judges want to see, shifts over the years, and so today, I think that the general feeling is that people who aren't hurting anybody, shouldn't be in jail. And by that, what I mean is if you're getting arrested for, theft or drugs or some sort of white collar crime, you're probably going to be looking at a ROR or
Now, what do you mean by ROR?
released on your own recognizance, not having to pay any money to get out of jail. And so we're in a time period where folks that are not hurting people, we're not trying to keep those folks in jail. Now, if you're hurting people or you're causing someone to be harmed, or at least alleged to have caused somebody to be harmed, then we're looking at possibly a money bond. And then that, if we're looking at a money bond, we're looking at how long you've been in Memphis. Do you have a job? Do you have any ties to the community? What you're charged with, the strength of the case, those type of things.
Okay. Now, General Sessions Division 10 is a specialty court.
Correct.
It is domestic violence court. So first, can you explain from a legal sense what is considered domestic in the domestic violence system?
Yes. So domestic can be intimate partners, spouses, girlfriends or boyfriends. It can also be family members, and it can also be people who just live together. So if you are in a rooming house with somebody and you get into a fight, that would also be considered a domestic case. So domestic encompasses all those types of scenarios: intimate partner relationships, families living together. But General Sessions Division 10 specifically handles the intimate partner domestic violence cases. So if there's the spouses, the girlfriends, the boyfriends, intimate partners, domestic violence come to Division 10. The other domestic violence cases are spread out amongst the other divisions, but that's what Division 10 handles.
So why have you chosen to run in this particular court? Because when most people think domestic violence, most lawyers think domestic violence, we think it's a big mess usually,
Mhm.
because there's so many emotions involved, and you never know whether you have a victim that's a victim, a witness that's really a witness, a defendant that's really a defendant. And
Right.
so, why have you chosen this particular court?
Well, Camila, you worked in the public defender's office for a number of years, just like I did, and you might remember. Well, I'm sure you do. There's a special unit called the felony team, and I was on the felony team, which handles felony matters in General Sessions Court for a number of years. I would say I'm going to take you back maybe like 15 years ago. Whenever I would go see the men and women that I represented that were charged with, domestic violence, aggravated assault, something like that, they would never want to discuss the case. First thing they would tell me is just go ahead and set it for a hearing. She's not going to show up. Right. She's not going to show up. Go ahead and set it for a hearing. Don't even worry about it. They didn't even want to talk about what happened and any of that stuff. So, I represented them and I did exactly what they requested. And more often than not, the victim in those cases didn't show up and the cases did get dismissed. So constitutionally, everything happened exactly as it was supposed to happen. And as their lawyer, I did what I was supposed to do. But I knew that the cycle of violence was not going to stop when those guys got out of jail. I knew that the person was still in danger. And that just kind of stuck with me. That stuck with me and it just kind of bothered me. And so I got busy in the community. I didn't see that could be fixed in the court system. So I got busy in the community working with different domestic violence agencies and helping people who are in dangerous situations. And so that's how I got into this. I have a passion for it. I've been doing it for 10 years, probably longer than that. And so, yeah.
So can you tell us about some of the work that you've done in the domestic violence prevention space?
Yeah. There's not a lot of men in this space. I can probably count on two hands over the past 12 years or so that I've been in it, that the men that are in this space that work in it regularly. And so I started with the Domestic Violence Council just as a member, doing awareness about community services, making sure that people in the community knew about the services that were available if they were going through a domestic situation. I became the president of that particular organization, the Domestic Violence Council. I'm currently on the Shelter Advisory Board for the YWCA. The YWCA has the largest shelter in Tennessee, and it is a safety net. I have helped many people get into that facility, and they needed it, even if it was just for a day or two while they found another place to go. And then a year and a half ago, I started my own advocacy service where I receive information about people who are in danger, and I help them move. I provide clothes, money, transportation. We've helped move people out of state if that's what's needed. So that's my community work in that particular area.
So what can we do as a community to help stop domestic violence? It's such, I was speaking to a group of children, and one of the young boys, he asked me, he said, what kinds of cases do you see the most? And I thought about it and I said, you know what? It's domestic violence.
Right.
So what can we do as a community to prevent this?
Well, it's two things. The first thing is I think that the onus is on the men, the men who are not abusive, to really step up and tell these other men, this is not not to be tolerated. I think more men have got to raise their voices up and speak out against this and make it not acceptable within our community. Even the misogynistic talk and that type of thing has to be made unacceptable. And that's got to be something that the men have got to step up and do. The second thing is we've got to leverage the people who know about somebody who's in a domestic situation. Let me give you a quick example. Like, you might have a friend who is in a domestic situation, and you've talked to her and you've like, this guy is putting his hands on you. You need to get out of this thing. And she may not be ready to go. And so what we have to do is make sure those friends and family members who know that somebody's in a domestic situation, we got to make sure they know what to do. We got to actually turn them into personal advocates where they, develop a safety plan on behalf of the victim, already identify a safe place to go on behalf of the victim. Make sure they got, clothing and transportation and a little money. You got to do that on behalf of the victim, and then let them know, I know you're not ready to go, but whenever you're ready, I'm here for you. and I'm ready for you. And we have to keep saying it over and over. And eventually, hopefully, it'll click and they'll reach out for that help to that friend or family member. But nobody, generally speaking, somebody knows when a person is in a domestic situation. Somebody knows, and we gotta leverage those people and put them in positions where they can help.
Thank you. And lastly, over the past 2+ years, I think we've learned a lot about efficiency in the court system. Before, you had hundreds of people on the lower level of 201 Poplar on any given morning, afternoon. And after the pandemic, you saw less people. You saw that judges were allowing people to have their cases reset without coming to court and different things like that. Some judges were Zooming with lawyers. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how do you think that judges can help to make the courts more efficient, in particular 201 Poplar?
Yeah. It's interesting. The pandemic was able to do what our office couldn't do over the whole 10 years the whole 11 years I was there before the pandemic. We kept saying to our supervisors that our office could be almost 100% virtual.
You mean the judicial commissioners?
Yes, the judicial commissioner office. Like, we could move a lot of stuff to online and make it a little bit more efficient. And of course, a lot of that stuff fell on deaf ears. It was just kind of keep doing the same old thing the same old way. When the pandemic hit, we were forced to try those things, and some things worked out really, really well, and then other things didn't. But we certainly brought in the technology, and I think it helped certainly keep people safe during the pandemic. One thing that I really like in the courtroom that you just mentioned, not having all these people come down to 201 just to have their cases reset, was a eye-opening benefit. I mean, you know how General Sessions can be. You can go 3 or 4 times, and the only thing that happens as far as the defendant is concerned is the case gets reset. And so, if that's all that's going to happen, it's really not necessary for those people to be down there. They can get the reset date, on the phone. So I actually really, really like that. And it does keep the numbers down inside the building, and it saves people from having to drive downtown and spend money on parking. So that's one of the things that the pandemic has showed us actually works, and people like it.
Well, thank you. That is all I have. Any closing words for the people who are listening?
Sure, absolutely. A candidate always got closing words. Early voting starts on Friday. It goes through July the 30th. And then, of course, the general election is on August 4th. I'm uniquely qualified. I have the experience in the courtroom and the experience in the community. So I hope you guys will vote for me, Kevin Reed, General Sessions Criminal Court, Division 10. And thank you. I'm so honored to be the first guest. I'm not going to let you forget
Thank you
that I
so
was the
much
first guest.
for joining me, fellow East High Mustangs.
That's right. Mustangs stand up. Mustangs stand
Shout
up.
out to all the Mustangs. Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
You too. All right. Thank you to Kevin Reed for joining us. My next guest is Jennifer Fitzgerald, and I am going to add her. She is running for Criminal Court Division 2. Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation.
You are most welcome. So I'll go ahead and get started. You, like me, came up in a legal family. Your father is a lawyer. My father was a lawyer too, criminal defense lawyer. So how did you get started in law? And actually, before that, tell us about your educational history.
Okay. So I'm a native Memphian. I graduated from Kirby High School and then I went to Arkansas State University. I majored in criminology, graduated cum laude. And then I came back to Memphis and I went to the University of Memphis Cecil C. Humphrey School of Law. So that's my educational background.
And how long have you been practicing?
I've been practicing almost 15 years. I do federal and state criminal defense. I handle cases from murders to misdemeanors, serious felonies, pretty much everything.
Was your father an influence?
Certainly. So my father, when I started practicing, he had been practicing for almost 30 years, and that his practice is primarily criminal defense. Actually, when I went to college, I thought that I wanted to do investigation because I like to figure things out. But I've always had an interest in criminal justice, and of course, my father is an attorney, and he did criminal defense, so that piqued my interest in that. And so, as soon as I got out of law school, I joined his firm, and I've been doing that ever since.
So, what are some of the challenges that you feel are facing the criminal justice system, in particular in Memphis?
Okay. Well, a lot of the things that I see is the unfairness. So, I've been doing this for almost 15 years, and I noticed that some people are not treated like other people, whether it's their race, whether it's the amount of money they have, the attorney that they have. Those things should not be affected in determining the outcome of your case. And then also, as far as fairness, not having the opportunity to be heard, and so whenever anyone comes in the courtroom, they should be treated fairly. And then one of the other things that I notice is that people are treated less than because they're accused of a crime. Just because you've done something doesn't mean you deserve to be treated less than a human being. You still deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. That goes for defendants, that goes for witnesses, and that goes for victims.
So how does a case end up in criminal court? So in Memphis, a lot of times we say upstairs because that's physically where the criminal courts are located. And we say downstairs for general sessions and we say upstairs for criminal court. So how does a case end up in criminal court or upstairs?
Okay. So a case usually comes to criminal court one or two ways. So usually if a case starts in general sessions, which is, downstairs, and the case there's whether the case is waived or the person has a preliminary hearing, and then the case goes through the grand jury to the indictment process. Once the indictment happens, then the case is in criminal court. Also, it can happen where the case does not start in general sessions, and they call that what's called a secret indictment, and that goes straight to the prosecutor decides to take the case straight to the grand jury, and then the case is indicted, and then that comes before the criminal court.
So, what are some of the decisions that a judge in criminal court will make?
Okay. So a judge in criminal court will make a decision, the amount of bail someone gets, the sentence that someone gets, whether someone gets probation or whether they go to jail for a certain period of time, whether they get diversion. Also, a judge in criminal court will hear jury trials, motion hearings. If someone feels that their rights have been violated, they may hear suppression hearings, post convictions, which means that someone feels that their attorney did not properly represent them. So a criminal court judge pretty much hears a lot of things.
So we hear about a lot of wrongful convictions. It seems like every time you turn on the TV, you're hearing about somebody that's getting out after serving 20, 30, 50 years in prison. So what role can judges play in preventing wrongful convictions?
Well, the judge plays a very important role in that because, one of the things that a judge is supposed to do is to uphold the law, follow the law. And so when certain issues come before the court, if someone's rights have been violated or certain procedures were not followed, then the court is supposed to have the courage to make the right decision. I mean, in my philosophy as a judge, I feel that you should always do the right thing. And so if you do the right thing, whether that's unpopular or whether there's political pressure, just do the right thing. You have to have courage to do the right thing. And so what I think that happens a lot of times is people may be afraid of the backlash instead of just doing what's right to make sure that the laws are upheld. Because the thing is, when people don't do the right thing in the court, then that means that costs taxpayers money, because the case has to be done all over again. So, the judge plays a very, very important role in making sure that wrongful convictions don't happen, because they have to make the right decisions when things come before them.
I know that you are involved in the community. I know you are active with the Delta Gems. I spoke to one of your groups, I think, not too long ago. Can you talk some more about your community involvement, the Delta Gems, the Girl Scouts, and why you feel like it's important to work with young girls?
So, yes, I was the chair of the Delta Gems program for about 7 years. That's basically a program that deals with high school girls, mentorships, teach them life skills, teach them how to be successful women, education, all those type of things. And I also was a Girl Scout leader, and I work with youth basketball. But the importance of having a mentor, I do a lot of mentorship. So that's very, very important, because sometimes people don't have someone to, lead them in the right direction. And so a mentor can really make the difference in someone's life. It can make the difference on what direction someone goes. And so when we look at, sometimes in the criminal justice system, maybe, mentorship can help people make better decisions, so mentorship is very, very, very important, especially in my life. And especially, I think it would have certainly have a positive impact on things that happen in the criminal justice system.
So oftentimes, I have felt as a criminal defense lawyer that judges are somewhat removed or out of touch with the people that come before them. For example, there are some judges who, if a person is 5, 10, 15 minutes late, and they say my bus didn't come on time, or my car wouldn't start, so I called my cousin and my cousin didn't come, and the judge would lock them up or sit them in the front of the courtroom for the whole day until the end of the docket. And so to me, I always feel like you're so out of touch that you don't realize that if a person doesn't have transportation, then they can't come downtown, once a month and be assured that they're going to be on time for court. Or they can't miss work once a month to come to court because they work at a temp agency, and if they don't go to work, they don't get paid, or they might get fired. So can you talk about the importance of being in touch with the community that you serve?
Certainly, certainly. So I'm a native Memphian, and I've been here my entire life. So I understand, Memphis culture. I understand that. But I also think that as a judge, you have to be compassionate, because they're still people, despite what they're accused of, and, they haven't been found guilty of anything. And so I think you have to be compassionate, understanding, and in touch with, like, people have real life problems. Things come up. So is it a waste of our time to have someone, missing work? Have someone sitting in the courtroom all day where they're missing money, being able to take care of their children? I don't think, that's the best use of resources or time, their time or our time, So I think that you have to be in touch with the people that you serve. And especially because I'm from Memphis, I understand my people. And then just because a person in life, I deal with things, people deal with things, but you have to be understanding to what people going through. I mean, even as an attorney, you have to be compassionate with what your clients are going through, because most of the time when people are coming to you, they're coming to you in very, very difficult situations. And so as an attorney, you have to be caring and compassionate for what people are dealing with.
Yeah. So criminal court division 2 is a special place for me. Otis Higgs, Judge Higgs, was in that seat, and he actually swore me in when I first started practicing. And it always felt like a calm, peaceful place to be. you always felt like you would be treated with respect, your client would be treated with respect, and that was the tone of the courtroom. And it's still like that. The judge now, Glenn Wright, he's not running for re-election, but it's still like that in that space. So how do you plan to carry on that legacy, the Otis Higgs legacy of Division Two?
Okay. Well, certainly, I plan to continue that Otis Higgs legacy. So, from my perspective, there are three things that make a good judge: someone who's fair, someone who's followed the law, and someone who has a great temperament. If we go back to Otis Higgs, he was that type of judge. When we go and we look at Glenn Wright, he's that type of judge. Judge Glenn Wright, he's that type of judge. And I plan to continue to implement all of those things when I become the next judge in Criminal Court Division 2. I plan to be fair to everyone. I plan to follow the law, and I expect to continue to have a good temperament.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was Russell Sugarman in Division 2? I believe so. Now, Judge Higgs was there when I started practicing, but I believe Judge Sugarman was in Division 2 as well. So it's a lot of history and legacy in that courtroom.
Correct.
So the past 2 years, I think we've learned a lot about efficiency at 201 Poplar, because a lot of times it's a circus and it's a stigma around just going there for anything because it's known for being somewhat disorganized. But over the past 2 years, we've started Zooming. We've started doing a whole lot more things electronically, and judges have been more inclined to excuse the presence of people with cases on the docket. So how do you think we can become more efficient in the justice system here in Memphis?
Okay. Well, I think certainly like not keeping people coming to court for, a routine report day, really not having someone come to court until their case is going to be disposed of or there's a hearing, because basically when they're coming to court, they're having to miss job, they may have problems finding childcare and things like that. So really we want to only having people come to court when we have there's a hearing or the case is going to get resolved. And then also, probably doing things more electronically, maybe having filings online, maybe doing more things by Zoom, as opposed to having people come up to the courtroom maybe for a routine, report day, maybe just doing that on Zoom as opposed to making people actually come into the building.
So can you give an example of a judge, say somebody is trying to get probation, and just for educational purposes, somebody's trying to get probation, it's a probatable offense. What are some of the things that a judge would consider in determining, somebody in your position would consider in determining whether someone should get probation?
Okay. So, there's several types of probation, but one of the things the court is going to be looking at is, can the person be rehabilitated? Are they working? They're going to look and see whether they're working. They're going to look at their prior criminal history. Are there things that could address the issues to keep them from coming back to court? Do they need mental health treatment? Do they need drug rehab? Those type of things. So, the court has to look at all those things collectively and make their decision as to whether this person should go to jail or whether they should get the opportunity to get probation.
All right, that is all. Do you have any final words for the people who are listening?
Well, I would just say first, thank you, Camila, for allowing me to come on your show. But I want to say, my name is Jennifer Fitzgerald, and I'm running for Criminal Court Division 2, and I need your vote. I need you to remember me on August 4th, and it's one easy way to remember me is to vote for your girl Fitzgerald. And we talked about that legacy in Criminal Court Division 2, and Judge Glenn Wright is endorsing me for this position. So I need you to go and vote for your girl Fitzgerald.
Okay. And Ross hasn't logged in yet, so I had one omitted question.
Okay.
I forgot. I read that you, like me, also like biographies and autobiographies.
Yeah.
And so I think that as defense lawyers, we're always listening to somebody's story and then telling the story,
Mm-hmm.
because they may not be as articulate, they may not have the vocabulary, they may not know how to express themselves in a certain way, but we're always relaying the story to the court. So, how do you feel that you reading a lot of stories and biographies, and I want to know some of your favorite ones as well? How does that inform your work?
Well, I think what fascinates me about biography is just knowing how people got to where they are, I guess, where why they are here in life. And so I think that influences me as far as my clients, because like each one of them has a story. And when I look at a lot of times like why they're before the court, then there's a reason why they're before the court. Their life circumstances or things that may have occurred in their life that influence why they, come before the court. So I do a lot of federal criminal defense. And so federal, that's very, very serious cases. One of the things that's required in those cases is they do a pre-sentence investigation where they, ask them about the different things they experienced in their life. And a lot of times when I look at the story, the pre-sentence report and see what happened in their life, then that kind of explains to me how we got to where we are. So, it's always a reason for everything. It's always a reason why someone does what they do, And so I guess it makes me be more compassionate about, the different things, that people do, just more compassionate.
Okay. And when can people vote?
You can start voting Friday, July 15th, early voting to July 3rd is early voting. Election day is August the 4th.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jennifer Fitzgerald, Criminal Court Division 2, and I will put a link to your website so that people can get more information if they want to learn more about you. But thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good evening.
All right, you too.
All right. Okay. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. I believe that they will come up. I believe that I'll see them and I will try to answer the questions. Thank you for being here. You can go to YouTube. I will post my YouTube page so that you can join, so that you can log in on YouTube as well. Um, and I'll also save it to Facebook so you can go back and just pull it up on Facebook. If you would give me 1 minute, I am going to attempt to um, contact my next guest. So go get something to drink. Hold on. Okay, so my next guest is still out on the campaign trail. Ross Sampson is going to join us tomorrow. But thank you to my two guests who I spoke to today. Kevin Reed, who's running for General Sessions Criminal Court Division 10, which is a domestic violence specialty court, and Jennifer Fitzgerald, who is running for Criminal Court Division 2. And I'll see you back here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Thank you. Bye.